Let's just challenge everything we think we know about raising successful children in today's super competitive world. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're breaking down some incredibly insightful source material that totally rethinks the whole blueprint for raising capable, thriving kids. We're going to look at exactly why the standard playbook might actually be working against us and how we can pivot to a method that, well, actually sets them up for true success. Are comparing and competing actually dangerous? I want you to think about that for a second. Society pretty much views these exact traits as the ultimate drivers of success, right? We're constantly taught that a little healthy competition is good, and keeping an eye on what your peers are doing keeps you sharp. But our source material completely flips this script, revealing that these behaviors, they aren't actually signs of ambition at all. They're early signs of disruptive behavior. Early signs of disruption. Let's get right into it. So the source identifies two highly specific early signs of future disruptive behavior, and they are the tendency to compare with others and the tendency to compete with others. I mean, really think about how profound that is. The instinct to look sideways at peers rather than looking inward. That's a massive red flag. It's not an early indicator of a future CEO. It's literally an early indicator of disruption. But before all those external pressures come in and kind of warp their perspective, the pure underlying intent is actually so simple. Every child wants to be successful. That innate desire, it's already there. Kids aren't inherently disruptive. The drive to succeed is a fundamentally good thing, but the way they're being taught to manifest it, well, that's entirely wrong. The source of pressure. If children naturally just want to be successful, where exactly does it all go wrong? Which brings us to the question, who induces this behavior in our children? If kids start out with this really pure desire to succeed, where do they suddenly learn that success means tearing down someone else or constantly comparing test scores? Think about who is actually responsible for planting these somewhat toxic seeds into young, impressionable minds. Well, the source text methodically breaks it down into three distinct groups: parents, teachers, and well-wishers. Yeah, you heard that right. The very people who love and support the child the most are often the ones actively inducing this exact behavior. It happens through innocent stuff like, asking who got the highest math score at the dinner table, or teachers pushing for class rankings, or relatives constantly asking who got the best grades. Children are just completely surrounded by this comparative pressure, mostly from the exact people who are just trying to help them. The cookie cutter trap. This is where all that pressure builds into a systemic pathway that actively harms kids. The source captures this entire concept perfectly with the phrase, the cookie cutter trap. It really highlights the profound danger of taking these incredible multidimensional individuals and just forcing them into standardized molds. It basically demands conformity over capability, crossing its fingers and just hoping it magically turns out a successful adult. So what does this trap actually look like in real life? It's the act of coercing a child into a standardized path. We're talking relentlessly pursuing grades and expensive schools while entirely ignoring their individuality. And notice the word coerce here. That's a strong word, but it shows just how unnatural this process is, forcing them into a shape that might not fit who they really are at all. But active coercion isn't the only way parents fall into this trap. The text points out that the alternative is often passive neglect. Parents kind of just wait for strengths to be found out on their own, leaving their success entirely to chance. And this hands-off approach, it's equally dangerous. You simply cannot just hope a child stumbles into their life's purpose or natural strengths by sheer accident while they're navigating this rigid cookie-cutter system. Aligning strengths and interests. We've identified the problem, so let's shift to the solution. We absolutely need an immediate shift in focus. We have to move away from the disruptive behavior of comparing and competing and replace it entirely with building capability and raising standards. It means making that hard shift from looking outward at everybody else to looking strictly inward at one's own potential. The source mandates a really clear, immediate two-step intervention here for both parents and educators. Step 1, identify these compare and compete behaviors immediately. Don't just brush them off as kids being kids. Step 2, as soon as those behaviors pop up, replace them with a conscious effort to constantly build capability and raise their own internal standards. You've got to actively redirect their focus right back to their own personal growth. And the crucial takeaway here is this. True success is only possible through activities aligned with a child's natural strengths and interests. Capability isn't something you can just will into existence. It's built when a child is engaged in what they're actually meant to do, not what a rigid track demands of them. If the genuine interest isn't there, the capability will simply never reach its peak. Redefining true success. So, based on everything we've unpacked, what does the parent's job actually need to look like? Let's contrast the two main approaches here. A disengaged or coercive parent either leaves a child's strengths entirely to chance or aggressively forces them down that cookie-cutter track we talked about. Conversely, an engaged parent is genuinely interested in the child's true well-being and actively works to figure out their specific strengths. The source emphasizes that children with engaged parents have a mathematically much higher chance of actually figuring out what they're meant to do. As a parent, learn to develop your child. It is the absolute only way to ensure their success. This is incredibly definitive. Active, individualized development of the self, rather than just passively relying on generalized educational systems, is the absolute sole guarantor of success. You simply cannot outsource this to a school or standardized test. And that leads to this final, truly shocking warning from the source text. It reads, "Expensive school and relentless pursuit of grades destroys the child's ability to succeed." I want you to just think about how counterintuitive that is to modern parenting. The traditional markers of success, the very things society completely obsesses over to get ahead, are actually destroying a child's internal ability to survive and thrive in the real world. Which leaves us with one final, pretty powerful question. How will you build capability today? It's time to challenge the status quo. Drop that compare and compete mindset right now. Stop looking sideways at what the rest of the world is doing. Start looking inward and focus entirely on raising your own true standards. Thank you so much for joining me as we unpack this explainer. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll catch you next time.